Welcome to Cars on Call. I am automotive journalist Steve Schutz, and I'm here with trauma surgeon Dr. Stephan Moran, who's back from Japan.
Yes, and I got my hat, been there, done
Kanish,
that.
Konnichiwa. Well, I don't even, what does the hat say? I can't see it.
It's a Bond sushi. And
Oh,
I had the sushi chef sign it. There it is over there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I went to the sushi place twice. It was the best sushi I've ever had in my life. It was fantastic.
It's amazing. We obviously invented sushi here, but it made its way to Japan pretty quickly.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. But yeah, Ellen didn't like the seafood in Japan, and she said it all to her tasted meow meow.
Yeah,
Well,
but sushi in Japan is another level.
it is no look. But here's the thing. I looked it up. I was surprised because I said, you know what? The fish does taste a little fishier. Well, the water in the sea around Japan is colder, so the fish have higher oil in them. And it's also the water is actually saltier. So we're used to eating like Gulf seafood, which is, probably brackish compared to Japan. So a lot less salt in our seafood. And the fish has a lower oil content. So that's why our fish doesn't taste as fishy as the fish in Japan. But
Right. Plus the Gulf of Mexico, the fish have that extra cocaine and fentanyl, and that changes the taste.
that's right.
So well, welcome back. We're gonna talk about Mercedes. We got a lot to talk about with Mercedes. Mercedes is going through a moment. And then we're going to talk trauma surgeon safety. We're the only podcast that has an actual trauma surgeon to talk about safety. Dr. Moran, who's done research on car crashes and has operated on many car crash victims. So that'll be cool. I have a rant and I'm
Ah,
kind of
okay.
irritated and frustrated, and I'm going to express that. And then we got car spotting. Did you spot a
Sounds.
car?
I spot a few cars in Japan.
All right,
Absolutely.
cool.
Yes. Yeah. We'll
So
talk
we'll do
about
that.
that.
Let's start with Mercedes because this is something that we talked about Porsche. Porsche went too far. Porsche, Audi, Mercedes went too far into BEV electric vehicles, and they didn't really hedge their bets. Famously, Toyota and BMW, who collaborate on many projects, neither one of them went too far, and they hedged their bets. So they came through the BEV debacle in much better shape. Mercedes, Porsche, Audi are really in trouble. So Mercedes just announced, after at least 5 years of all their ads saying the best or nothing, and really focusing on really high end Maybach, pushing Maybach as a trim level, but more than a trim level, pushing AMG also as a trim level, and AMG vehicles. They finally decided, listen, we're getting our asses kicked. We got our asses kicked with the EQ series. They're all electric things that nobody bought. They lost tons of money there, but not enough people. Porsche, to their credit, they can make a lot of money with variants of 911s, and they can make so much money there. It makes up for a lot of mistakes. There's not enough people buying Maybachs or AMGs, so they're like, oh crap, we can't goose the AMG line, we can't goose the Maybach line enough to make money to make up for what we lost in battery electric vehicles. So they decided they're going to go down market. They're going to go for volume. Stefan, what do you think about that?
I don't know. There's always, to me, Mercedes has always been and still in my mind is kind of like an aspirational mark, manufacturer. It's like, if you've got a Mercedes, you've made it, you've done well in your life. But when go to Europe, and I remember the first time I got in a taxi, and it was a Mercedes taxi. I'm like, whoa, Mercedes taxi. And in Europe, I had cloth interior, roll-up windows, because we only ever got the high-end package
Right.
trim levels in America. So Mercedes has always had a lot more volume in Europe because they do the four-cylinder cars and the cloth interiors. But it'll be interesting to see where they take this. I think they got to be careful in losing. It's kind of like a Lexus, there's a Lexus and there's a Toyota, but Mercedes is that upper level, and there's no really down entry in my mind. There really is no entry level four-door Mercedes. You're going to pay more for the Mercedes because you expect to get more. leaders in innovation in terms of safety. So I don't know, but I mean they got to find somewhere to make up the volume. I clearly get that to get the
They
losses, but
used to win. 10, 15 years ago, the best-selling luxury cars were Mercedes, and they would outsell BMW and Lexus. It was close, but they would typically outsell them. And starting about 5 to 8 years ago, they had this new push to be higher level. They came out with the AMG GT sports car. They came out with the Maybach line. You can get a GLS that's Maybach. It's super nice. I drove one. And of course, other AMG models. They had AMG trim for pretty much everything, and those cars were all expensive. But 10, 15 years ago, there was no Maybach and the AMG was really kind of marginal. And then they decided, let's go full into that. Let's sell more AMGs for more money. Let's sell more Maybachs for more money. And that's been over the last 5 years. And then these commercials that said the best or nothing, they really pushed the S class and the GLS and again these Maybachs, and it just people really didn't respond the way they were supposed to. Mercedes dropped to third behind BMW and Lexus, and they weren't getting the volumes that they wanted, and mostly the electric was going to be part of that, and it never really took off. My feeling is that they on the one hand, here's what I think. I think they fucked up by doing the electric thing, and they should just move off of that, which they're doing. But I think they're going too far and saying we're going to go volume. So we're going to have like these little crossover, like the GLA or the GLB, which are not really Mercedes. They're, I mean, it's nothing. What's the difference between that and a Volkswagen? And I just think they're going too far. I think it's a mistake to say we're going to really push the volume.
yeah, I think when you look at kind of compare Mercedes and BMW, what did BMW get right that I think keeps bringing volume to BMW? The M3 and the M5. Okay, people want the M3, but they'll get the regular 3 Series. They really want the M5, but it's kind of like the Mustang GT. It brings people into the showroom, and people they'll get the 4-cylinder, or they'll go out something different. But I think even though they've slapped the AMG badge on a lot of the different Mercedes, there really was, you're hard pressed to tell that it was the AMG version, besides the AMG on the back. And I think BMW did a much better job of establishing the sport M3 and 5, which brings people to the showroom. And I think it gives that brand a lot of street cred. And to these days, I see an M3 and M5, I'm like, yeah, that's nice. That's a very nice car. But
Same for the X3M or the X5M.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think you're right. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right because what BMW did is they said we're going to take this vehicle and we're going to put it on the Nürburgring track and we're going to make it handle and we're going to make it fast and we're going to make it agile. And Mercedes just said, "Fuck it, we're just going to put a big motor in."
yeah. And one of my Mercedes picks is along the lines of what they need to do again to bring people back to the showroom, to give the brand a little more street cred.
Well, here's what I think they ought to do, and I think they ought to a couple things. Number one, not go down market. Obviously, they've got the GLA, they got the GLB, they've got the CLA, they got these small vehicles. Okay, fine, but don't push that too hard and understand that their brand is valuable. So I think they shouldn't change too much. I think the Maybach is kind of stupid. Nobody really wants that. It's not credible. AMG, I would say make it sportier and make it more like M. But I think otherwise, don't change things too much and dilute your brand value.
Yeah, I agree.
By the
I
way,
think,
here's another thing they can do. They have the we I talked about authenticity and how they have that at least in the off-road area with the G-Wagon. How about a smaller G-Wagon? How about lean into that? Get, some more off-road stuff. A mini G-Wagon, sell more G-Wagons, maybe have a lower trim, really bump up sell more G-Wagons and then keep everything else kind of the same and get rid of the electric. How about that?
that would work. And they got to get rid of the 4-cylinder engines in the AMGs too. I know they're moving away. They caught a lot of grief about that.
Yeah. All right,
Just so stupid.
they actually introduced the C63
63
sedan
with a
with a
four cylinder.
four-cylinder in Europe, and nobody
But he
bought them. And they said, okay, it's really good. We're going to do this. And they just said, all right, we're not doing that. And then they were going to come to the United States. They never actually arrived because everyone just said, this isn't going to work. The dealers said, don't do this. And they didn't. So now the new C63 is going to have their 4-liter twin turbo V8.
finally.
Yeah.
I mean, some stupid mistakes, marketing standpoint. But BMW hasn't, the M5 kind of came close with this new hybrid. It's so heavy, but the journalists love the way it drives. So, but yeah,
I have
Mercedes got some work to do.
a future rant which will touch on the four-cylinder C63, but that's not for today. Hey, before we move on, we decided, Mercedes has a rich history. They're a great company. Let's go through our three favorite Mercedes. So let's start with you. Go through your three favorite Mercedes of all time.
Okay.
And we didn't do the 300 SL because that's everyone's favorite
Yeah,
Mercedes.
right. Yeah, right.
But there's a lot of cool ones. Mercedes is a rich history. And as I was thinking about this, man, Stefan, there were some great ones. I can't wait to see your three.
All right. So let me, I think I got the picture up here. So my number one, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back. This is number three. Number three. This is the second generation 2011 CLS 63 AMG.
I can't see
Um,
it. You got something else in the
oh, I
way.
thought I shared.
Well, you
All right.
shared something, but you're
All right.
sharing text.
Let
So
me
I don't see the picture.
share. How about this?
It was there it is.
There it is. Okay. So when the CLS came out, this was their four-door coupe. I remember you picked me up in San Francisco or for my birthday when we did the Audi driving school, and you had a CLS.
Yeah,
And
second gen.
second gen, I just thought this design to me was, I mean, it was really out there for Mercedes. I thought it was a very cool design. And when I first saw that car, I'm like, I gotta have one of those one day. So for me, it's one of my, comes in at number three. But it was such a big design change for Mercedes, and you don't really, you're not old enough for the S class, but you really want an S class. But no, you can slide into the CLS and still be very cool. And this is the 63, so it had the 5.5 liter turbocharged V8, 550 horsepower, 590 foot-pounds of torque, just a monster of a car. So for me, this is for my number three choice.
Two-wheel drive. This was epic.
Oh, it was an epic car, man. I mean, what a fantastic car. All right, coming in at number two, of course, here's what Mercedes needs to do again. This is the Mercedes 500E. This is the W124, produced from 1991 and 1995. This was their high performance sleeper. They co-developed it with Porsche. It had the 5-liter V8, 322, 326 horsepower, 350 foot-pounds of torque. The E-Class was hugely successful for Mercedes. I mean, it it was just a fantastic design. But then I remember going to Kettering Hospital in Dayton, Ohio. We're doing a residency, Steve-O. And of course, it was one of the orthopedic surgeons who always got the newest, latest, greatest. I'm like, I look over like, there's a black 500E. Whoa, wait a minute. I mean, I'm sorry, a 300E. And I look at it, I'm like, wait a minute, those fenders are flared just a little bit. It sits a little bit lower. And it was a 500E. And I mean, to me, it was the coolest Mercedes at that point in time. And today, for me, this is still just up there. This is my number two all-time coolest Mercedes. I watched these on Bring a Trailer. Man, I'd love to have one. And this is a European spec that's got the what do you call that? The black and white, not check, but interior.
Oh, like houndstooth type
Yeah,
interior,
houndstooth. Yes. Uh,
which is a Porsche thing, but of course Porsche helped build this.
build it right. So this is a European spec. But so for me, the 500E is my number two all-time greatest Mercedes. I know you like this car as well, but number one for me, it's, because this is kind of here we go. This is Paul Brack's design. He was a French guy in
Yeah,
1968.
the 500E is Bruno Sacco, the famous
Right.
Mercedes. Yeah,
So here we're going back to 1968, and this was actually first introduced in 1963 with the 230. But this is Paul Brack, who was a French designer working for Mercedes, and this is the classic, what they call the pagoda roof two-door coupe. Hardtop comes off, and it's a convertible. And I just remember seeing these things with the top, and it is just a spectacular car. It's got the thin A pillar, the B pillar, and the C that comes off, and you've got this wonderful convertible. The proportions are right, it stands tall, but that roof to me, that hardtop, is just something. I mean, I never seen anything like that. Nobody else has ever done it. The top's concave, the back mirror's concave, and it's just to me, it is a simple design, yet it's gorgeous. And
there's
it's,
an elegance to this design.
oh, it just has
It's
it's almost
less is more. It's got beautiful proportions. It's got just an understated design, but it's still elegant. It just kind of whispers, "I'm rich."
and I just absolutely, to me, this is my all-time favorite Mercedes. Of course, after the 300 SL, but we're not picking that one. So this is my number one pick, the Pagoda roof. And I'd like the 280 SL, a little bit bigger engine. And also the fact that it's designed by a French guy. A French guy working for the Germans 20 years after World War II. That's actually kind of impressive. But
It is impressive.
so those are my top three. I had one more picture. I showed this picture. There we go. Yeah. All right. All right, Steve-O. I'm going to
Yeah, I'm
bring up
checking one more
your
thing.
top
I think
three.
the Pacoda design is amazing. It's absolutely incredible. And like I said, it's understated. It's timeless. It's aged very well. I just absolutely love that car. And I totally love the CLS from the mid, it's like 2010-ish. The second generation CLS is absolutely awesome. Just three great choices. The 500E, the Bruno Sacco W124 midsize sedan and wagon were absolutely, they were perfect at the time. Same thing, elegant and of the 80s. And they've aged so well now. It's just incredible. The Mercedes, talk about a rich history. So, all right, if you could bring up mine, this is really cool because this is Cars on Call and I'm Steve Schutz. I'm going to say one of my three favorites is it's the midsize Mercedes sedan from the 70s. And this was the one that predated the W124 Bruno Sacco design. And this is also Paul Brack. It's a great design, but this is the diesel. And the diesel Mercedes from the 60s through the 90s, but especially in the 70s and 80s, people don't understand. Most Mercedes in the 70s and 80s were diesels.
Yes.
And people forget that the S class, more diesel S classes were sold in the 80s than gas S classes. And this was a very innovative design. It's a five-cylinder, 2.4-liter diesel engine that Mercedes, they didn't develop it. It was developed by a small consultancy. And there was an Austrian guy who left Porsche, and started a consultancy, and he designed this five-cylinder diesel engine. His name was Ferdinand Piëch.
Yeah. I was waiting for that.
And this five-cylinder diesel engine was very efficient. It was a great engine. And this Porsche family member designed this engine. Of course, famously, he went to Audi, and the Audi Quattros that ruled in rallying in the 80s, they all had five-cylinder engines designed by Ferdinand Piëch. So this was a very successful car. These cars, they run on vegetable oil. You can go to McDonald's and get the French fry oil, and these cars will run on that. So that one. The next one is the early 2000s were peak German car. Absolutely, this is going to go down as maybe the best era of our lives as far as engines and transmissions and German power and performance. And I love this car. This is the CL600. It's a 12-cylinder, beautiful coupe, no B pillar, just a beautiful design, round headlights. And Mercedes had always had square headlights. They had these round headlights. They were absolutely beautiful. And I love this car. I love that it's a 12-cylinder engine. I love the stately elegance of this, but also I picked it because of this. It's an era that people don't know. I don't think we're going to look back maybe in 10 years and say, wow, the early 2000s for Mercedes, BMW, and to a lesser extent Audi were perfect. And then the last one is the 1979 Mercedes 6.9. I remember this car. I remember you do too, Stefan. This car, the 450 SEL, was the S class that most people drove. And then they came out, I think in 78 was the first year, maybe 79, was the 6.9. So it said in the back, it said 450 SEL and the trunk lid in the back of it on the right side. And sometimes it was a 280 SE, sometimes it was a 350 SEL, but L was long wheelbase. And the 6.9 came out, it just said 6.9. And you knew what it was. There was one badge on it that said 6.9. When this car came out, Stefan, it was so impressive. This was the catalytic era, 0 to 60, anything under 10 seconds was amazing. And this car came out, had sports car performance. It would certainly beat a Corvette 0 to 60. When this car came out, Stefan, an Eldorado, Cadillac Eldorado, which was, the most expensive Cadillac, was around 14 or $15,000. You want to know how much this cost in 1980?
Oh,
Again,
let's see.
$14,000 for an Eldorado.
45,000.
It was $50,000.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, it was so expensive, and yet people bought them. This was absolutely just peak Mercedes at a time when Mercedes really, they were so exclusive. Earlier, we were talking about how they're selling to everybody. They were not selling to everybody back then.
Oh, excuse me. A little jet lag. All right, yeah. So the T40D, I remember those back in the 70s. There were that's the Mercedes you saw everywhere. I agree with you. Another great design. I
Zero
think
to
that's a
60
great
probably in
pick.
20 seconds.
20, yeah. I think that's a great pick. The CL600, to me, that's not for me. It's a little too roundish. I was never a big fan of those four little round headlights. That's just, to me, the proportions are kind of off. But a 12 cylinder, that's just, I mean, that's crazy. But, if I had the choice between the 12 cylinder and 600 or 6.9, I'd go with the 6.9 all day long.
It
That
was,
6.9 is, I think that's, to me, that's kind of like the birth of AMG. Even
yeah,
though it's really, never been talked about that way, but to me, this is the first truly AMG high performance Mercedes that came out, where they just, you know, going along the American line, just throw the biggest ass motor you can in the car. And this was the long wheelbase. These were Autobahn cruisers. I mean, they would just haul ass, and that's just a beautiful design too. I love it. That's one of my favorite era of Mercedes. Didn't see a whole lot of those, but when you saw that
plus the
6.9 on the,
price.
when you saw the 6.9 on the back, you're like, whoa.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
All
that
right.
or
Trauma
you're,
surgeon safety.
all right. So let me hit that. All right. So there was an interesting article that came out. You can look it up. It's in Bloomberg News by David Zipper. Just came out actually just last month. And what he did was he kind of looked at some people's data on American highway deaths in a little different fashion than we like to in America, and kind of made the counterpoint. I'm going to go through it with you. But the gist of this article is Americans are disturbingly likely to die in a vehicle crash, which is true.
You've been talking about that
I've
since
been
we started the show.
I know, but I always talk about, I like, when they look at vehicle per million miles traveled. But the International Transport Forum, they really look at it more of roadway deaths per 100,000 inhabitants or 100,000. population base. So rather than per miles traveled deaths, they're looking at just do population base because you'll see why it makes a little more sense. And I kind of talked this when I was doing my research. There was a researcher, and he was big into this at the time. But I kind of got caught up with the American safety culture that no, it's per million miles traveled. That's more important. But if you look at us in the United States, we're somewhere around 40,000 every year, which is a lot of people. And that works out to 12 roadway deaths per 100,000 inhabitants. So every 100,000 people in America, there's 12 that die a year on the roadways. Think about it. If you look at that from the statistic of population based, our rate of deaths is twice as high as Australia, Czech Republic, Israel, and South Korea. I mean, twice as high. But if when we like to look at, well, what about, we do deaths per a million or billion vehicle miles traveled, we look safer than they are. But if you do that in the other countries and you apply our standard in America per miles, we still are more dangerous than the countries I just mentioned, Czech Republic, Israel, and South Korea. So even looking at our data, we're not doing as well as they are. Well, in the United States, we wanted they had this idea that the transportation people, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and everybody, so that what they said, well, we're a gigantic country. We drive a lot of miles, so it's more important how to look at our death ratio by how many miles we traveled. And Americans love the automobile. We spend a lot of time in our car, so that's why they came with this idea of not population based, but miles traveled. Well, think about it though. If you're going to normalize fatalities by miles driven, what are you going to focus on? You're going to focus on the vehicle and you're going to focus on the roads, right? Whereas in a country that looks at it more from the standpoint of how many deaths per population base, how do you lower that number? You lower that number by getting people to drive less and get them out of the vehicle. So you have public transportation, you have roads that are safer. But in America, we haven't looked at it that way. And so as a result, we keep focusing on the vehicle. We don't focus on the driver. And we're not getting people out of vehicles. And, after coming from Japan, the public transportation was unbelievable. We took the metro everywhere. You jump out, take a taxi. I'll talk about it. There's hardly any cars on the road because they have public transportation. You're way safer in public transportation than you are in your car. It's like your kids are safer going to school in a school bus than walking to school or you driving them to school. But we just haven't looked at it away because we keep fooling ourselves thinking, yeah, but our death per million miles traveled is not that bad. But really it is. And I think I do like this idea. This is more of from looking at it from a public health standpoint. And kind of way you can think about it is, you know, if you look at it let's look at it per 100,000 deaths, let's talk about, compare it to an analogy in healthcare. Do you want to focus on reducing the number of cancer deaths per cigarettes smoked? So think about it. Cancer deaths per cigarette smoked. So that's like vehicle deaths per miles traveled in the car. That's not a good public health strategy. You want to get people to not even use tobacco in the first place, not looking at how many died by how many cigarettes they smoked. So
That's a good analogy.
yeah, I thought that was he had that in there and I said that makes so much sense. But the audio executives, they don't want to hear this. And the road engineers in America, they don't want to hear this either because then they've got to improve the roads. They got to get rid of these dangerous intersections. But they said, no, no, no. But, we travel a long ways. But you think about it, you're more likely to be killed within 5 miles of your home than you are anywhere else traveling your vehicle. And I've talked about this in the past. It has to come with driver behavior. Your brain doesn't want to make new memories. So you're not paying attention to the road. But I'd like to see this shift in back towards this population-based death. We had a researcher who tried to do this 30 years ago, and he didn't make any grounds with it. But it's a great article, a good way to look at it. And I think it's time to maybe rethink this in America and more from a public health standpoint, but I don't think it's going to happen. But I think it'd be nice.
Well, a lot of truth comes from humor. And I saw a TikTok where this Australian comedian said, I learned something coming to America. He said, in the entire rest of the world, the speed limit is the speed limit. It's what people drive. He
Yeah.
said, in America, he goes, it's crazy. He said, the speed limit is there just so you know what the pussies are doing.
Yeah, yeah, you go to Australia, you do 2 miles over the speed limit, you're gonna get a ticket in Australia.
And they have traffic cameras. So it's like you're not getting pulled over. They just take a picture and send you a ticket.
Yeah, our speed limit signs are suggestions. 70 miles per hour suggested. And everybody's doing 80 and higher. Um,
Except for the pussies in their Priuses.
yeah.
All right. Well, I hope we
That's
do
great.
change, and I hope all of your suggestions, if all your suggestions would actually come true, we wouldn't have 40,000 deaths on the highway.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I got a rant, and it does speak to experiences you and I have both had. It's about bad buying experiences and new car buying experiences today. And I bought a new car about a year ago. I got a Lexus SUV. And it just was a crappy buying experience. They tried to charge me 5,000 over sticker,
Because
and I
you ordered because you ordered the car,
because I
right?
ordered it.
Yeah.
And of course, I got that taken off. And they try to give you dealer add-ons like tint and all this stuff. I wanted no part of that. It was just a frustrating experience. And have you
Yeah,
heard
they
of
get
this?
you cornered in the finance office and then they start throwing all this stuff at you. And that's where they make their money.
Yes. Have you ever heard of Tomi Mikula?
I watched somebody, maybe it's the guy I watched. No, I don't know who he is though.
Tomi Mikula has a company where you pay him $1,000 and
Oh, that's right.
he'll buy you the car.
Right.
And he and his team, he's got 10 employees and it's growing like crazy. They sell about they buy for people like us, they buy 200 vehicles every single month and they're growing rapidly because people are just tired of it. So here's my rant. You, years ago, said the Teslaification of the auto industry is happening. And what Tesla does, they have a great buying experience. You go on your phone, you pick your car, it's the price. It doesn't change dealer to dealer. It's non-negotiable. The car shows up in your driveway. If you like it, you keep it. If you don't, you have a week to return it and get all your money back. That is the best buying experience. And Tesla is a big selling vehicle. They sell many, many hundreds of thousands of vehicles in the United States every year. Those vehicles are not that good, and they're electric, which is a headache. I think the only reason they do so well, and two of my partners bought Teslas on their phone. And I think the major reason that they do so well is they don't do all this bullshit. I've been watching, and Tommy McCullough also live streams his calls to the dealership, and you can hear all of the bullshit that he's got to go through. And it's stuff like these actual phone calls with salespeople. Well, you have to come in to get the price. Your presence is your power, what they say. And he actually went in once and they said, just come in 50 minutes, we'll give you the price. And they did not give him the price. They danced around. It was just a bunch of the same old thing. Well, how about this? How about this? The add-ons are necessary. This is a very popular car. He's buying RAV4s and Highlanders and Escapes and Explorers. And it's just the hidden fees that one in particular, they said, oh yeah, all of our cars, it's on the website. All of our cars have these add-ons. Tint, auto theft protection. I know you have a whole story about that. Theft protection, the whatever the low jack thing, and dent protection and all this stuff. And it's all crap. And you have to pay $3,000 for something that costs the dealership $50. And it's in every car. We can't take it off. This one guy said, literally, he said, listen, it's on the website, it's all there. And then Tommy said, it's not on the website. You go to the website that says nothing about dealer add-ons. So I think here's my rant. Car buying, despite here's what it comes down to. Tommy says, "Hey, don't get mad at me. People are paying me $1,000 so they don't have to deal with you. That's how bad you are. People give me $1,000 for every single transaction so they don't have to deal with you. That should tell you a lot. And I wish car dealers would not continue to be bad. The bad old days are now. And I find it very frustrating. Again, I experienced it, you experienced it with your Bullet. This needs to change. And I hope everything goes to the Tesla model. It shouldn't be this nasty to buy a new car.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, the Bullet experience, that was an awful experience at
Go
Mercedes-Benz
through
in
that whole thing with the
Nashville.
low jack thing.
Yeah, so I found the Bullet online and I went through and found on the website and they said this is the price. And I texted them and said, what is your out the door price? This is what the internet says. Is that my out the door price? And they said yes. And then I get up there, and then of course they shovel me into the finance office, and I'm in there for hours. And he said, "Well, no, there's a $500 processing fee." And I said, "No, there isn't." He said, "Well, yeah, it is. It's here on the internet." I said, "No, I got my price from cars.com. That's from Auto Trader." He goes, "Oh, I guess we got to honor that." And I said, "And what's this?" He says, "Well, it's got anti-theft in it." I said, "I don't want that." And that was not on the internet. He goes, "Well, all of our cars come with it." And we went back and forth, and he
It's
kept
pre-installed.
pre-installed. And then I said, "That's fine. Take it out. I don't want it." And then he goes, "Oh, well, we can't take it out. We'll have to have you come back to do it. When you come back to do it, we'll take it out at that point in time." Well, I get home, find out I was furious. I was furious about this whole thing, and I just wanted out of there. He kept delaying me, pushing me out of the office. I was there for like 3 hours. The car never had it. It wasn't even on the car, and they charged me for it. And I wrote them a nasty review, and they got upset with me. And I said, "No, you lied. You flat out lied to me." And I should have called the NADA on them. Now, my last truck that I just bought, I went on the internet and you gotta go through the fine print everywhere, looking at they have add-on fees. And I found two trucks, and then I was texting only, no phone calls. I said, I will do text and email, but no phone calls. And I said, out the door price, everything, tax, title, tag, everything.
Right.
When all your dealer add-ons, I don't care what you add on to it. Tell me what the out the door price is. And I bought it up out of the Ford dealer up in Tennessee. I can't remember the name, but that was the exact price that I walked out. And I was so happy with them. And then it only had one key, and they actually gave me a second key, and I ended up buying a warranty, extended warranty, well after the fact, after they gave me the key fob. So that was a great buying experience. But I'm with you. I don't like it. And I remember when I got my first, we got a mortgage back in 2000 when I got out of the Air Force. And back getting a mortgage can be a lot like buying a car. They
Yeah.
tell you this is, so what I did was, we had a fax machine. I faxed all the different banks and said, here is the house I want to buy. Here's what I'm putting down. Here's how much I'm going to borrow. Tell me your rate and all fees. Because you get, I always equate going to closing on a mortgage is like getting gangbanged. I mean, you got to pay a $25 doc fee. You got to pay a transfer fee. Then you got to pay the person that gives you the title that researches is you got to buy their damn insurance for them. I don't get that. Do you have to buy malpractice when I operate on you? No, you don't pay my insurance when I operate on you. But you have to pay the title person insurance to protect that they reviewed your title and it's clear. Anyway, but that's the only thing that worse than me is worse than buying a car. But I don't like buying a car, and I watched a great video on YouTube about how to handle the finance office. But what I just simply tell them now is I'm like, I don't tell them. I said I may finance or may not, but tell me what the out the door price is. Just what the price is. That's it.
Right. That's
Everything
what
added
Tommy
on.
does.
Yep.
You should
I
you should
don't,
watch Tommy's videos because that's what he says. What's the out the door price?
yeah, just out.
I don't want any dealer add-ons, and he has to deal with it. And you realize ultimately, of course, he's very good at his team is very good. He advertises it. The company's called Delivrd with no E at the end. So just delivered with no E at the end. But he advertises it as, listen, we're going to save you time and save you aggravation. We're not guaranteeing we're going to save you any money, but typically he does save money. But it's amazing, absolutely astounding that this guy and his company exist and they're very popular. I saw another TikTok, a young woman, obviously professional. She wanted to buy a Forerunner. She ran around and every TikTok was like they lied and they lied and they lied. They kept changing the price and she just got tired of it. So she had the last video she had was she goes, I called Delivered. They bought my car. It was great. It was the price I wanted, exactly what I wanted. I didn't have to deal with any of the bullshit. And it is a lot of bullshit. You have to come in. And then, by the way, you're going to buy a Mustang. Why does that take 3 hours? It shouldn't take any more than 20 minutes.
Right.
Now, I
Yeah.
give my place credit. I said I can only be there for half an hour. I have to leave. I have to be somewhere. So I said, whatever you need before I get there, take care of it. And the price was already pre-negotiated. So it was easy, but and I didn't get anything from the finance office. I said, I don't want any of this. But it shouldn't take that kind of squeezing someone to say I have to be
Yeah.
out the door. What are you doing there for 3 hours?
They make you sign that you don't want the tire protection plan. They make you sign that you don't want the rim protection plan. They make you sign that you don't want the glass protection plan. I mean, why am I signing stuff that I don't want? Okay.
Right.
I mean, you don't want the extended maintenance plan. You got to sign that. I'm like, yeah, they need to. I mean,
And it takes time to do all that.
they're just wearing you down.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be like that. And again, the bottom line for me is the very fact that Tommy and
Exist.
Delivered are doing 200 to 300 deals a month tells you how many people are frustrated by this situation. I bet if he had the manpower, they can 10x that.
Well, you think that the car dealers would just wake up one day, but they've got, they don't like the way Tesla sells cars direct, they don't like manufacturer direct to the customer. The Dealers Association's got a huge lobby force. But yeah, I like looking at cars and going in and test driving the cars, but buying a car is absolutely, I just, I go on the internet and find what is a reasonable internet price people pay out the door. But then you're gonna fight when you get to the finance office.
Yeah.
They're just gonna wear your ass down, and it's gonna take longer than it should. But
Well,
yeah,
go Tommy Mikula. I'm pulling for you.
I
All
think
right,
he'll
car
do great.
spotting. I guess you got Japanese cars.
We got Japanese cards, yes. So let me pull some up here. We'll run through these pretty quick. So I want to say just a couple things about Japan. First impression, I was like, where are all the cars? There are so few cars on the roads in Japan. It was unbelievable. The roads are fantastic, but there were I'm like, where are the cars? And in Tokyo, there were so few cars in Tokyo, I couldn't believe it. The only time I saw congestion was we were leaving the cruise ship terminal going back through Tokyo out to Narita Airport. There was a traffic jam going the other way. The other big second impression was, man, are these cars small. So in Japan, they have what they call the Kai cars. And the reason is all comes down to taxes and inspections every 2 years. So Kai means light. So in Japan, you pay more taxes. Every 2 years, your car gets taxed. You pay more tax when you buy the car than every 2 years, and you pay more inspection for large cars that pollute more, have bigger engines. So the Kai cars, these are small highway legal vehicles, but they've got very strict size and engine restrictions. Engine can only be 660 cc's,
Like a
63 horse.
motorcycle.
Yeah, 63 horsepower. It cannot be longer than 11 feet. The reason 11 feet is because some of these are pickup trucks. but it can only be 4 feet 7 inches wide. That is narrower than a smart car. Okay, which is tiny. But, so the annual tax is $70 for a Kai car. My Mustang in Japan would be $850 annually for the tax.
Wow.
Yeah, so you think about the difference, almost 10 times difference. So if you're driving a big S-Class Mercedes, that you're going to do that. So here we go. Let's look at some pictures. I already have them up. Share. Here we go. Another thing I noticed was lots of cool colors, but so you got here's a picture of a Kai car. This thing's got suicide doors, but they're vertical and they're stretched out to every corner, but they're basically a box on four wheels. But they get pretty creative with some designs, lots of cool colors. How do I get that? Let me come back. There we go. Here's another little, this is a little Nissan four-door, but this is a lot, we saw a lot of color. This is kind of a rose colored, but it's actually from the cherry blossoms. They like these cherry blossom colors. Why does it keep doing this? Um, I did that one. Here's a little, this one reminds me of a Renault 4, a little blue four door. That was, I thought, pretty cool. And here's one, this was funny. This one, this is the CAN bus, but I think this is, like I said, this is the Snoop Dogg version. You just, the CAN bus. Um,
That's great.
but here's a nice purple one. But they were actually pretty cool looking little cars, and they did some two-tone colors. But they're all kind of these stretched out four box things. Um, and here's the Suzuki Hustler. This is Larry Flint's personal line of cars.
That's great.
I thought that was good. This one to me looked like a little baby Bronco Suzuki.
Yeah.
Uh, but they were just, this is a different Nissan we're going to get into. But here's a classic little Kai truck. So four-door truck and with a little compartment on the back. I mean, they really figured out how to maximize utilization. Here's some crazy colors. Look at this thing. This is pink with pink leopard spots. This is at the Nissan dealership.
Hello, Kitty.
Hello Kitty. Here's a little yellow two-door Honda, which we've never seen in America. A little four-door. So and you could, amazing how much you could cram into these cars in terms of room, how much room they had. That's a color for you, Steve. Then I saw two little convertibles, these little tiny two-door Kai cars. I don't even know what they were, but it's very cool little things. Here's another convertible that I saw. But think about it, it's only got a little 600 cc engine. Look at this purple lilac color. You never see this in the United States.
No.
But all these different colors, these oranges, purples, blues. And then here's the other. So this is the big money car in Japan.
Century.
These are the crowns. Yes, so Toyota's, they've got Lexus, yes, but then specific to the Japanese market are the Crown
Century.
line. And this is a
Century.
Century. Yep. And this is like a gigantic, almost like a Bentley Bentayga look to it. Here's a Crown four-door
It's like the
sedan.
Japanese equivalent of Rolls Royce.
Yeah. And here's the Crown sedan. Kind of a cool swept back four-door look. Didn't seem they're beautiful. And then here, instead of the Lincoln Continental livery car or the Cadillac livery, this is the Japanese livery vehicle. This is a Toyota, and it's basically a skinny, large minivan with sliding doors. But the interior of this thing was, I mean, it was decked out and the seats were reclined. They had TVs in the back. And of course, your driver in Japan, he's got a suit, white gloves, and a tie. And you walk up to the cars, the doors open up, the drivers open up the doors for you. They don't talk. There's no music on. It's just silence. And it was a really nice riding experience. Did see some cool cars. This is a Steve, I have no idea what color Porsche this is. This is a color green that I'd never seen before.
I don't know
Um,
what that is. It's
I
beautiful though.
It was beautiful. Yeah, I was like, I tried to look it up. I'm not sure what that was. I'm sure some kind of paint to
I'm sure
sample.
you didn't see many 911s or McLarens over there.
No, we saw one here. We saw one McLaren here. Elements. So I saw that. Um, I did see a Corvette, a red
Wow.
Corvette in Japan in Tokyo. I thought that was pretty crazy. I saw a Lotus parked in a garage. That was pretty
Oh,
cool.
Elan, yeah.
Yep. And then
Oh,
a,
Europa, I guess.
a Jaguar E-Type in the middle of
Wow.
Tokyo. That was so cool driving around. And it actually looked pretty big. It looked right sized, you know, compared to the other vehicles, which is interesting. And then we'll
Wow.
finish
Beautiful.
out with in Japan, Evo
Oh,
has
geez.
auto atrocities. I think this is a Chevy SS. What was that? The
HHR.
HHR that's kind
Yeah.
of been, I think they're starting to work on it, but
Oh,
saw some,
geez.
yeah, that's awful. But
To follow, Chrysler had the PT Cruiser, and then
yes,
Chevy came out with the HHR. And
uh,
some automotive journalist, I didn't hear it firsthand, but he said it's a Me Too cruiser,
huh.
which is really funny. So I always think of that as the Me Too cruiser when I see it, but it's the Chevy version of the PT Cruiser.
But overall, yeah, the Crown vehicles were the gorgeous, and I just like seeing cars with lots of color. Reminded me of Italy. So all the cars that weren't Kai cars were your standard gray, black, white. But the Kai cars are where you see, people got that little car, they're gonna have fun. They put a nice color on it. Parking is outrageous in Tokyo and all the cities in Japan. So, you want a small car so you can park it, basically up on your curb of your home. But it was cool seeing all the different cars, and I was just amazed how few cars are on the road. We rode the subway everywhere. And then we got out of the subway if we wanted to, we just take a taxi and we had an app and it's how transportation needs to be in the cities that you either do bus or you do the subway. And you don't drive your car and then try to find parking for it. Imagine if you could go to the football game or a baseball game and some down in St. Louis or Kansas City or Atlanta, and you just walk 15 minutes, jump on the metro, and you're right there. I mean, how much better would that be? But
Be
not in
way better.
America. Yeah, not in America. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, it's confined to cities, and a lot of people are nervous because there's so much crime, or you're going to be pushed onto the tracks. So they gotta fix the crime problem. There's no crime in. I love that there's no crime in Tokyo.
I did not see a single. I don't think I saw a single police car with lights anywhere. I did not see a single wreck the whole time we were there. We are there, and let's see what else. Ambulances, of course, but yeah, I don't think I never saw a cop walking the beat on the street anywhere. And they said there's like no crime in that country. It's people are just respectful.
I love Japan.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely amazing country, and the food was incredible. The people were quiet but very nice, very polite. I loved it.
Yeah, so just a couple quick things for listeners. When you're in Japan, you do not walk and eat when you're in the street walking, you do not eat in public. Go walking down the street. You don't have your big gulp in your hand. You're not talking loudly to the person next to you when you're walking on the street. You're not talking on your cell phone when you walk. You're not texting on your phone when you walk. When you get in the subway, everybody's quiet. Nobody talks. They're minding their own business. They're on their phones. And we, you know, I loved every bit of that, and then I realized quickly became apparent how much I enjoyed it because we got to the airport and went to the Airlines lounge, and there were people talking on their cell phones in the lounge, drinking and talking to the person across the way from them, and there was none of that in Japan, and I miss it already. I like the peace and quiet. And respect. It's respecting other people. I don't want to hear your damn conversation on the phone when I'm sitting next to you on the subway or I'm sitting at the lounge. We had to move 3 times at the lounge because I got tired of listening to other people's conversations on the phone.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's so
So
classic. It's kind of embarrassing. I feel
it
embarrassed.
is.
Sometimes I'm just embarrassed to be an American, and that's one
When
of
they
them.
say loud Americans, that's the classic, loud Americans. You know, you got the drunk Brits and the loud Americans. So.
All right. Well, listen, that wraps us up. So close us out, man.
Hey, thanks for listening. Sorry if I'm a little low energy. It's still kind of jet lagged. We just got home Friday night and I got up at 2 a.m. this morning. But thanks for listening. Remember to subscribe, hit that bell, and we'll catch you next time.